Hey, how's it going? So you may have seen that I was uploading some German lessons. Now, what I really want is an interactive chatbot which has a database backend attached to it to remember which words I need to know. And then it operates on a schedule, but is itself autonomous and able to administer a lesson. Um, and it seems like interactive chatbots, like the one integrated in ChatGPT, but I've seen them elsewhere. They're also in Gemini. There's a slightly less advanced chatbot inside of Claude. It's still pretty advanced, but it seems like it struggles with the microphone a little bit more, at least on a desktop environment. And maybe I'm a little bit more dismissive of it, but if it doesn't just work out of the box, I'm like, well, I'll focus on other things. The point is, the technology exists. I just went off on a weird tangent there. So, what I would like to do is I would like to have a curriculum backend and just kind of let an advanced model just kind of go hog wild. And you know what? If a prompt is bad, then so what? And if a student knows something, then it doesn't need to be part of the curriculum. They can be administered it, and they can, move on. Okay, I don't know how to do this, and I'm hoping that it's not particularly hard. Okay, so I would like to design an interactive voice system which guides a student through a language lesson. So the core mechanic would look like this. LLM or TTS agent, whatever, says AI, let's say AI, LLM or TTS agent, whatever, says, I don't know, something in Spanish. Let's do it this way. The first line of a story in Spanish. And then the human has a few choices. They can simply translate the sentence, which will then be judged forgivingly with, AI. But strict enough to catch misunderstandings. Not well defined, that's fair enough. Or they can say they don't know, which goes into a sentence breakdown mode, or they can use other commands like repeat it, or I don't know, probably repeat it, or exit lesson, etc. How hard would something like that be to make, and what technology would you suggest? I would like to not focus much on the interactivity portion or the backend stuff. I don't want to have to deal with microphones or audio streams, etc. Okay. I heard Duolingo has something like this, but I mean, they want like something absurd, like $200 a month. And there's no way. I'm actually kind of annoyed at Duolingo for seemingly deliberately making their entire program worse. They got rid of existing good content and replaced it with AI slop. Now, I understand the irony. I'm looking to AI to build my own solution because I don't want an AI solution, but I object on some level to Duolingo's gamification. It seems like they're more vested in tricking people into thinking that they're learning than actually teaching them. And so, like, for example, when I made my Kana app, um, when I made my Kana app, I almost went, well, okay, a certain amount of it was that I just didn't spend a lot of time, but I consider it a benefit that it isn't sitting there, trying to give you dopamine hits for things other than just remembering the content. The content is just there. You click the lesson and you're in charge of scheduling. You can set reminders, I guess. So, okay. The part you want to avoid, mics, audio streaming, turn asking, is the part that's basically a solved problem now. Yes, I was hoping for that. And the part you're waving off as not well defined, the forgiving but strict grading, is the actual hard part. I'm not sure that I'm waving it off. Whatever. So your instinct to not focus on the plumbing is right, but it means the project's difficulty lives almost entirely in prompt logic design, not engineering. Let me break it down. The voice plumbing is easy and you don't have to build it. There's a whole category of voice agent platforms now that handle the entire loop, capturing the mic, speech to text, deciding when the user stopped talking, calling an LLM, speaking the reply back, so that you never touch an audio stream. You configure an agent with a system prompt and some functions, and they run the real-time pipeline. Vappy, Rettle, what about DeepGram? Are the main ones in production use. For your case, the relevant split is managed orchestrators, fastest ship, below 10,000 minutes a month. 7 cents a minute. So what is that? If I did 7 cents a minute for 60 minutes a day, sorry. Oh, God. Oh, God. That's fucking expensive as shit. That's for a single user. The crucial design choice for your app, use a pipeline, speech to text, text to LLM, text to speech, not a speech-to-speech model like real-time API speech-to-speech is lower latency and more natural, but it uses audio in the reasoning, so you don't cleanly get the student's answer as text. For a language grader, you want the transcript because grading a translation precisely is a text problem. Give that up and your grading gets mushier. The grading is the real project. Forgiving but strict enough to catch misunderstandings is an LLM as judge problem, and is where your weeks will go by. I don't want weeks to go by, but I'll work on it. Okay. For each storyline, you pre-write 1 or 2 acceptable reference translations. At grade time, you have the judge model the original Spanish, the reference, and Spanish described transcribed audio plus an explicit rubric telling what is forgive and what is fail. Forgive, synonyms, dropped articles, pronouns, word order variation, minor tense shifts that don't change meaning. Fail, wrong content, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I get it. Single best thing you can do, given your constraints, prototyping the whole thing as text chat with no voice at all. The modes, translate, I don't know, breakdown commands like repeat and exit are just intent routing plus a small state machine. And the grading is just that judge prompt. You can iterate on pedagogy 10 times faster in text, getting the grading actually good, and then wrap the finished logic in Vappy or Retail, at which point voice is a thin shell over something you've already validated. Decouple the teaching from the plumbing. The modes themselves map cleanly onto function calling. Define tools like grade translation, inner breakdown mode, repeat line, exit lesson, and let the model route the student's utterances to the right one. Every platform above supports this. One caveat worth knowing up front. Speech-to-text on learners is harder than on natives. Beginner mispronouncing Spanish or speaking English translations with hesitation will trip STT more than clean speech does. Deep Gram and Whisper handle Spanish well, but budget some testing time for the student said it right, but the transcript was wrong, especially if you ever grade their spoken Spanish rather than typed spoken English translations. And I am well aware of that problem, and I have no intention of having a model attempt to grade spoken foreign language. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just trying to say that's not what I'm trying to do in the project that I'm working on right now. So, okay. Speech to text on learners is harder than on natives. I read that already. I read that. A working prototype is a weekend with VAPI once the text logic exists, a version where the grading feels genuinely fair, and Sharp is a few weeks of rubric tuning. The voice was never the problem. Want me to sketch the actual judge prompt or the mode routing logic or map out the text first prototype concretely? No. No, I do not want that. Let's see if I have Chrome. I don't want to pay. 7 cents a minute doesn't sound like very much, but if I do a significant amount of time, it's a killer. Oh my God. Why can I not type? All right. Let's use the built-in text-to-speech solution that is inside of... let's use the built-in text-to-speech solution that is inside of... What the hell am I trying to say? Inside of Chrome. This tool is for myself anyway. This tool is for myself anyway. It will be very, very simple. The script connects to a backend API, which also happens to be running on my machine, which provides it with MP3s to play, and accepts a stream of spoken text, and it doesn't listen while the MP3 is playing. That way, the entire loop is completely self-contained, and the only thing I need to deal with is the backend delivering the content, which I feel reasonably confident. Let me know if anything in my design sounds bad. Okay. script connects to a backend API, which happens to be running on my machine, which provides it with MP3s to play and accepts a stream. Okay, the latency might make this completely unreasonable. That is very possible. And I probably can't run the QA loop that I would like to run. But, you know, untangling Chrome TTS confusion and flagging safe self-containment trade-offs. All right. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to spend a weekend and then weeks on this. That sounds like a giant pain in the ass. I want to whip something out quickly and have it administer lines to me. As simple as that. Chrome's speech recognition behavior is the kind of thing that's been shifting, and it's central to your design. Shifting in what way? I'm just going off of it's free. Okay, and I'm not going to use it for a mission critical thing. I know that it gets sent to Google's remote ARS server. I do consider it a security vulnerability, but at the end of the day, I don't think that it matters. Cost reasoning is sound. At any real volume, the per minute platforms are wrong for a personal tool. 2 things that design are genuinely smart, and 2 will bite you. Let me go in order of how much they matter. Half duplex, not listening while audio plays, is the best decision in here. It sidesteps echo cancellation and margin detection, which, no offense, Claude, is something that you kind of suck at, which is where a lot of the real engineering pain in voice agents live. You're trading a little naturalness for a lot of simplicity, and for a solo language drill, that's exactly the right trade. Likewise, doing speech to text in the browser and sending only text to your backend keeps audio out of your server entirely, which is what makes the backend the easy part you're confident about. Problem 1. Chrome's built-in TTS and backend provide MP3s are 2 different systems, and you've described both. Built-in TTS is the web API speech synthesis. You hand it a string and it speaks using local OS voice. I don't want it to speak. Did I say TTS instead of ARS? God damn it. God damn, that's my fault. That's my fault. I said the wrong thing. Okay. Backend, I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. Stream of spoken text is wrong model for grading. You want the final transcript, not an interim stream automatic end of speech. Okay. Okay. What I want is an interactive translation assignment. Not assignment. Mechanism that doesn't feel... that feels interactive. I could do exactly the same thing, feeding a line of a story at a time to a text-to-speech engine, and then attempting to translate it, and then using automatic translation to see if I was right. The problem is that this is cumbersome and annoying and doesn't feel like a lesson. It feels like tedium. I meant to say Google's ARS backend, which is oddly free as long as you are using their browser. I realize I said TTS, which is not what I meant. Although live TTS for English prompts might be okay. Non-deterministic failures for foreign language prompts might be more problematic. But I don't really have a solution for that at this time. I would probably use deepgram or 11 labs to generate the foreign material. An interactive translate. God, that make no sense at all. I could do exactly the same thing, feeding a line of a story at a time to TTS engine, and then attempting to translate it and using automatic translations to see if it was right. The problem is that this is cumbersome and annoying. It doesn't feel like a lesson. It feels like tedium. I meant to say Google's ARS backend, which is oddly free as long as you are using their browser. I realize I said TTS, which is not what I meant. I feel like I'm over-explaining a little bit, although live TTS for English prompts might be okay. Non-deterministic failures for foreign language prompts might be more problematic, but I don't have a solution for that at this time. I would probably use deepgram or 11 labs to generate the foreign material. Tedium from pedagogy. Is it pedagogy? I was on a walk today when I saw a lemonade stand. So that was fun. Two girls. I just happened to have $1 with me, so I bought one. Lemonade makes my teeth sore, so I can't drink too much of it, but I had a few sips, and I was well out of visual range, and I just dumped the rest. So support local business, right? The tedium isn't coming from the mechanic, it's coming from the checker. Use automatic translation to see if I was right is the thing that guarantees it feels like a worksheet. I know that. Machine translation compares, it doesn't respond. I get the fucking problem. You don't need to restate the problem. Just make the fucking web page. The audio, your plan is right. Google's ASR being free in Chrome is fine for input. Just remember that's half the round. Oh my god. Where was I? Just remember that's the half that round trips to their servers, so the loop isn't fully local. But for a personal tool, that's a fair trade-off. Pre-generating the Spanish with 11 labs or deepgram is, of course you pre-generate. Oh my god, of course you pre-generate. All right. Want me to draft a tutor grading prompt? That's the piece doing the heavy lifting. No. I want you to make the first write a spec for a backend that allows input and output. The output will be MP3s with mirrored text, and the input will be a text stream coming for, this is dumb. How attached am I? Let's do it. It's fine. Write a spec for a backend that allows input and output. The output will be MP3s with mirrored text, and the input will be a stream coming from spoken text inside the browser. I will give that spec.md file to cursor and ask it to draft a version in Flask. Okay, so let's load here this. Let's make ourselves a speech tutor project. Oh, I have a weird headache. Oh, all right. Load. Okay, so let's go here. Let's please become responsive. Oh my God, I have a powerful computer, supposedly. Maybe it's not powerful enough. New project. Okay, now this is going to be voice. It's going to be language tutor backend. Do I want language tutor backend, or do I want generic TTS agent with plugins? TTS, ARS, backend, agent. All right. Okay, architecting Flask, backend spec with utterance, playlist, and tutor grading. All right. We can make a more specific version and then make it more generic later, so that's fine. Oh, shit. I just did a privilege escalation thing, and I don't know if the video is still recording. Here, let me try pausing. Okay, I have paused and resumed. Hopefully that should fix it. You can't do a privilege escalation during the middle of a video. All right, was not thinking. So, all right. Start a Flask project with a hello world API endpoint. Start a Flask project with a right. That's fine. It will have no authentication because it's just a local, simple tool, right? Before I write this, let me quickly check whether there's a markdown skill to follow for the deliverable format. No markdown skill, and none of the document skills apply to a plain spec anyway. I'll write it directly. Here's the spec, built around the decisions we landed upon. Okay, a few things I baked in that are worth knowing before you hand it off, since they're decisions cursor will otherwise make for you. The whole thing hangs on the utterance playlist. Instead of a separate speak this and play this fields, every response is the ordered list where each item is either a clip or a, say, English browser or text-to-speech. That structurally enforces your Spanish as audio rule. There's no field where Spanish text could leak into the browser voice, and it makes half-duplex trivial. The front end plays the list top to bottom and then listens. The tutor contract is part of the iterate on. Spanish is only ever heard as pre-rendered audio. I think this is a little bit over-engineered, but that is fine. So let's download this. Download as MD file. Okay, so let's come over here. always Spanish is only ever heard as pre-rendered audio. That sounds good. Python 3.11 Flask, HTTP JSON API, LLM for grading, TTS classifications, static. All right. Suggested prompt structure. Hey, this is pretty sweet. All right, cool. Yeah. Make a generic HTML. See, now it's so specific that I can't use it as a backend thing. So TTS provider is 11 labs, TTS key or dgram, whatever. Suggested prompt structure, example. Okay. Before we design a true front end, please make an example HTML document which demonstrates listening mode in Chrome. I want to make sure it actually works. It should put a divider where it thinks the user stopped talking, and presumably some sort of timeout that is configurable, though not necessarily visible to the user, which determines how long the user is allowed to pause before the system thinks that they are no longer talking, and I feel like that will need tweaking, but I'll deal with it later. Okay. Yeah, the air conditioner's blowing, but it's hot as shit in here. I'm going to turn the AC lower. All right. Okay, is this still working over here? All right. Okay, I would like a slightly smarter. Okay. So d:\/code\AI library. Yes. Look at d:\/code\AI library and figure out how to integrate with the existing TTS and LLM request systems. Write simple unit tests. Well, not really unit tests, right? Simple integration tests which do low-cost requests one time to ensure that the systems are online and working. use discount models. Use haiku and deep gram for the use haiku and deep gram for the example. Once it runs once, I will disable the test to prevent future cost. All right. Okay, so it just needs to import the library. Maybe that's the terminology I should have used. I should have said import the library, but I did not. So, oh, it can just access a remote folder without asking permission. That's a little alarming. I probably granted it permission. Well, it's alarming whether I granted it permission or not. Okay, yeah. Okay, so let's take a look over here. Oh my God, it's still working. Get her done. You know, that sounds so loud, and you look out and it's just like a regular motorcycle. Like I thought it was like some gigantic thing that Ghost Rider would be riding, and no, it's just like a normal motorcycle. I guess they're just that loud. All right. ASR listening test. Let's download as HTML. Go here and then say open with Google Chrome. 1500 milliseconds. Now that sounds a bit much. So, oh, damn. Okay, this is a test. I don't really know what to say. This is a little bit awkward. Okay, this is actually pretty friggin' awesome. Fuck. Dime lo que pasa. Chispas. Claro que sí. Tengo alergias a las crustáceas. Hay muchas personas en los Estados Unidos. Hola, soy yo. Yo quiero dormir. All right, that works really well. Okay. right. Okay. I didn't know that it was waiting for me. That's kind of awkward. Let's see what my usage looks like. You just notice that everything goes slow. I really should use auto more. I don't want it to check environment variables. No, I want you to use the... God damn it. Don't check the environment. That is true. You will need to install the libraries. All right. Oh, tired. Okay, let's come over here. Okay, architecting dark mode front end with mock backend integration. I mean mock backend integration. I don't want it mocked. You ass. You know what? That's fine. If it starts out mocked, then that's fine. Then I can test it, and then everybody's happy, right? I would like to be able to develop systems like this where the only thing I need to write is the prompts. It gets a little bit more complicated when you're doing a foreign language, but you know, the general concept is the same. So what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? Close, close. Oh, I wanted to see, did my final German lesson come up available? It is available. Nobody's watched it, but it is available, so that's awesome. Well, this can also be delayed and updated as well, so we'll just see. Voice state indicators. Well, I'm glad that it is glad that it's working hard. Always allow. I don't even know what I'm allowing. Run the tests. Sweet. If these tests could just work, that would be awesome. All right. To run the test once. No, that's fine. Go ahead and disable the tests. If they're working, that's good enough. I guess I don't need to justify myself, but whatever. Go, slave. Okay, still working. Okay, let's take a look here. Lesson backend spec.md. Yeah, so implement lesson backend spec.md to make a language Tutor backend. Note that you are not designing the front end. At least at this time. Okay. Implementing the full Tutor backend per the spec. I'll explore the project and AI library integration patterns first. Heck yeah, you will. Get her done. Remember when coding used to involve writing code? Those are some funny, silly times. Funny, silly times. Listen, then translate. All right, download as HTML. Lesson front end, and then open with Google Chrome. Start lesson.
Here's your first line. Translate it into English when you're ready.
Había una vez un pequeño zorro.
What the fuck?
Not quite. Tap break it down and we'll work through it together. Not quite. Tap break it down and we'll work through it together. Not quite. Tap break it down and we'll work through it together. Not quite. Tap break it down and we'll work through it together. Not quite.
All right. All right. I'm glad this is thinking on the back end here. What it would really be nice to have is a simple tool that I could just paste a document in, whether it's a story or song lyrics or whatever, or a news article or whatever. And then it just walks me through a line at a time, forcing me to translate. And then on the back end, it keeps track of which words I should and should not know, and maybe things that I struggle with. That way, I'm not married to a specific curriculum. And that was the same idea that I had when I was building the reading program for my daughter when she was like 4 or 5 years old, was that we would read novels. And so, I mean, I wasn't deciding the curriculum. We would pick the novel. We would input the novel into the website, which admittedly was a gigantic pain in the ass. And then from there, you know, we had all the information that we needed. And then it would keep track of the words that she knew, which is basically just the spellings of words, with a few exceptions for things that could be pronounced 2 different ways, like dove and dove. All right, so configuration, all 14 unit tasks pass with mocked LLM TTS, live API tests remain disabled. All right, that is awesome. So this should be making some progress. I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm just going to pause it. And we're back. Okay, so let's take a look here. Basically, it said it was recreating the object every time, and it shouldn't have done that. So yeah, whatever. Okay, open with Chrome.
Here's your first line. Translate it into English when you're ready.
Había una vez un pequeño zorro.
I spent time with a small fox.
Exactly right.
Vivía solo en el bosque.
I don't know.
Not quite, give it another go. Or tap break it down. Let's take it piece by piece. He lived alone.
Vivía solo.
In the forest.
En el bosque.
Now try the whole line again.
He lived alone in the forest. He lived alone in the forest.
Exactly right.
Un día, encontró una llave grande.
Here's your first line. Translate it into English when you're ready.
Okay. So let's. It's gonna drive me insane. Llave dorado. Oh, like El Dorado. That would make sense. All right. Okay, so. Okay. Okay. Currently, is using a mock backend. Okay. Let's adapt the Flask project to implement this as a front end, which will interact with the existing backend. I don't care. Oh, hold on. It can do it however it wants. Okay. The sounds. You know what? It's fine. It's fine. Just let it do its thing. I'm not designing the project. The project is designed for me, so bossy for no reason. Okay, I'll pause this and go make some tea. Wrong button. All right, I made myself some avocado toast. Delicious. This is one of the few times that I don't mind the heel of the bread. I don't normally like the heel, but for avocado toast, it's fine. Whatever. Hold on. Okay, I probably should have stopped doing that, but this is claiming that it's just done. Forgive me if I'm a little skeptical, but who knows? So let's take a look here. Pre-generate Spanish audio recommended. Okay, I'm a little confused. Where is the lesson coming from? Did you write it? It's probably whatever Claude wrote, which is fine, But I need to be able to substitute in my own. You know what? This is just a proof of concept. I shouldn't care too much about what the lesson is. And God, if I learned one thing from that German thing, is that a simple little project can consume many, many, many hours. There are two different stories in play, and that's likely the source of the confusion. The lesson comes from the JSON file on the back end, not the HTML. Story1.json. Where is it? Where is it? Había una vez un rey. Había un vez un rey. Once upon a time, there was a king. Oh, it was a little bit too forgiving. Había una vez is once upon a time. I did not know that. Okay. El rey vivía solo. King lived alone. The king lived by himself. El rey vivía solo. Nadie lo visitaba. Now, it's interesting that they used the continuative, Jesus Christ. What is it? The imperfect. The imperfect. No, that's not imperfect either. What tense is that? God damn it. Losing my friggin' mind here. What tense is this? It is the imperfect. Okay. Nobody was visiting him. Okay. So imperfect means over time something happened in the past. What is the tense for it? Is it just the simple? Well, I'll just ask. What is the tense for happened a single one time thing? Preterite. I'm not sure I've ever heard that. I'm not sure I've ever heard that. What is it called in French and in English? Simple past. Okay. Le passé simple. Passé composé. I think passé composé is what I remember from French class. So preterite is the most common term in all three languages when speaking English. I should probably learn that. Simple past and passé, well, hold on. Passé composé is what I used to say. Preterite is not the most common term across all three in everyday English. Simple past, preterite, preterito, passé composé, passé simple. Okay, so preterite is the word that you use when talking about Spanish, and I just don't ever think that I heard that. I went to Spanish class, I think they just said past tense, and it's just, who cares about these weird words? Okay. Spanish would more naturally be lo visité. I visited him, or nadie lo visitó. Nobody visited him. All right. Well, I don't really care because this isn't the actual language that I'm going with. Okay, so last generate audio, your story ID. All right, let's do this. Pre-generate. Terminal. Terminal. And then all right, sweet. All right. Honestly, text-to-speech fails, but whatever. Right now, I'm not worried about it. I can put in a QA loop later. Start the server. You actually think this is going to work? Okay, copy link, copy. Oh, shit. That is awesome. I should really finish my avocado toast. Let me finish my avocado toast and then we'll do this. And we're back. Okay, so let's see what it does.
Let's work through El Rey Solitario. Listen to the Spanish line, then translate it into English.
Once upon a time, there was a king. Internal server error. All right. Should have known it wouldn't just work. Internal server error. Oh. Go ahead and import the rest of the requirements. I'm surprised this didn't surface during the integration test, but whatever. Okay. The 500 is a missing Mistral AI depend. Yeah, I can see that. Fix it. That's its internal thought. Stop being a dick. It wasn't telling you that. Life is pain. Life is pain. You said that already. You already told me. You already asked me that. 5:58 p.m. It's almost time for tomorrow's leak code or today's leak code or so. I don't know. I get confused how it works with time zones. UTC time now. Ooh. Okay. Restart the Flask server and then run again. Is that what I ran last time? Okay. I would like to see this work. That would make me very happy. So, open in Chrome.
Let's work through El Rey Solitario. Listen to the Spanish line, then translate it into English.
Había una vez un rey.
Once upon a time, there was a king.
Perfect. That's the classic opening. Ready for the next line?
El rey vivía solo.
The king lived alone.
Perfect. You got it.
Nadie lo visitaba.
Nobody visited him.
Perfect. You got it. Nice work, you finished the story. See you next time.
Okay. I strongly suspect you used the English deep-gram voice to do the translations. This needs to be fixed and the generated MP3s remade. It was quiet, so I couldn't really tell at first. I strongly suspect you used the English deep-gram voice to do the translation. This needs to be fixed and generated MP3s remade. Let's come over here to deepgram. There should be Spanish. Oh shit, what's the keystroke? Close. Is that right? Okay.
Nadie lo visitó.
Yeah, that sounds a lot better. $20.25? The story actually specifies the German voice. Jesus Christ. English voice likely came from a default. Okay, well, I knew something was wrong. Okay, I found the bug. Deepgram ignores per call model and uses the cache client voice, while cache keys use the story voice, so English audio can be stored under the Spanish-German keys. Fixing TTS voice selection, switching to a Spanish voice, and then regenerating the MP3s. Always allow. That should not be the default configuration. That is something I did one time because I was desperate to get some shit generated. It must have copied the example that I was using to make the German lesson. God damn it. No, that's fine. That's fine. That's funny. We figured it out. It's fine. It's fine. Clearly, that was not what I wanted it to use. I wanted it to use the core basic library, but whatever, it's fine. To regenerate, yeah. Like, right at first, I'm like, that sounded a little weird, but like, yeah, I don't know. And it was super quiet, too. Now, I'm wondering if it was quiet because it didn't know what it was pronouncing. It seemed like the volume on the TTS English was way louder than the MP3 Spanish. Is that configurable? Checking how the front end handles playback volume for English TTS. Nothing balances volume today. English uses browser TTS at full volume and... All right. Okay. Cool. Sweet. That is awesome.
Let's work through El Rey Solitario. Listen to the Spanish line, then translate it into English.
Había una vez un rey.
Once upon a time, there was a king.
Perfect. That's the classic opening. Ready for the next line?
That is beautiful. Gorgeous. I am very happy with this. I mean, obviously it could use some tweaks and some enhancements. Probably not going to use it for Spanish, but I think this is awesome. I think this is awesome. And a person asked me to develop a Spanish language lesson. So I'm going to remake a video and just send that to her directly. And yeah, I'm very happy with this. And good luck with your own projects. So see ya.